The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Hello, Cherries fans and Newcastle fans as well. And, of course, the rest of the Premier League. Well, it is our visit to God's room, God's home now, as it is, of course, Sir Eddie. Everybody here loves him. Everybody up in Newcastle loves him. And if he was England manager, everybody across the whole country would absolutely love him as well. But for you guys, he is staying, and I'm sure that you're really, really happy about that. Of course, last time out, we drew against Chelsea, which enabled Newcastle United to move above the Blues as well. So that we have done Eddie a favour. Is Eddie going to do us a favour? Well, she'll find out. Now, before we get going, here's a bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. Find out more about them, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. And also, we do have a new sponsor as well, who is also sponsoring our Canva for the rest of this season. So a great welcome to Touchpoint Telecoms. So thank you to them for sponsoring our Canva for the foreseeable future. Now, of course, like I say, Eddie Howe, absolute legend. Newcastle United on a great run of form. AFC Bournemouth full of injuries. Probably the last place we want to go at this moment in time, especially seeing as it's a 12:30 kickoff again, thanks to TNT Sports. But hey, beggars can't be choosers, and it's great to see the Toon Army doing great, and hopefully, fingers crossed, continue to do great. Go win that Carabao Cup as well. Now, I do have a special guest, and from one of the leading Newcastle United channels, 100% Mags, it is a pleasure to welcome onto Up the Cherries in all departments, Carl. Welcome to the show, Carl. How you doing, mate?
I'm not doing too bad, mate. Thanks for having us on. I know it's been very short notice and all that, but it should be a really interesting game. We'll get into it in this video.
Definitely. And of course, earlier on in the season, we played at Dean Court in a 1-1 draw. If you cast your mind back to that game, of course, there was a controversial moment at the end with regards to Dongo Watara heading the ball into the back of the net, but it being judged as handball. What was your view of that as a Newcastle fan?
It's always a sticky situation on things like that. To be honest, with what's been going on at the moment, it's pretty hard for us to try and remember that at the moment. I don't know. I would probably say, if I had to say, I would probably say that I would think it would be about right, to be honest. On the handball, I can't quite remember it, to be honest, because there's that much that's went on with Newcastle of late, it's pretty hard to try and, keep up with, the matches that's been a while back now, because it feels like ages ago since we played you guys.
Oh, it does. Yeah. It's
But
second game of the season, wasn't it?
yeah, it was quite a while ago now. But yeah, I would say they're always a very sticky situation with that. That's why they have VAR in, but it's up to the people on VAR at the end of the day how they work the system. And to be honest, we all know, the referees, they're all going on to VAR, they can't get a decision right on the pitch, then they're going into the room, it's St George's Park, and they're trying to get it right there. And if they can't get it right on the pitch, they're never going to get it right there. They're St George's Park with all their monitors in front of them. So, yeah, I would say it was probably about right, to be honest, to handball in that situation, to be honest, if I cast my mind back.
When I look at the rules book, the rule book, if we're going in line with that, it probably is, but it's a case of how much it's so borderline that it was frustrating. It's one of those where you'd be delighted if it went in your favour, but at the same time, it's gut-wrenching if it doesn't. And hey, I think these things hopefully should even themselves out over the course of the season. But of course, it is a 12:30 kickoff again. And of course, it was a 12:30 kickoff at Dean Court as well. We know why they are televising this game in particular. It is because of God. And God being Sir Eddie Howe. Although saying that, Jason Tindall probably want to be centre of attention, so he'd probably want to be referred to as God as well. He is. Don't worry, Jason, you are a God as well. But it's not fair on the fans, really, that, is it?
No, not really. If you think about it, I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time, us Newcastle United fans, being that, we're so far north in the country. We always have the longest distance to travel. I think the closest team to us is around the Manchester, Liverpool area. And that's pretty much our derby every season, since the other northern clubs like Sunderland and Middlesbrough went down out the Premier League. It's just not fair, like you say, on the fans, to make them have to make that massive trip up every single time, or in our case, a massive trip down and then all the way back up. It's just really, really unfair. I don't think the person that comes up with the fixture schedules and the times for these matches ever really thinks of the fans, to be honest. They're always thinking about, the first thing to mind, which is the money, to be honest. How much they can make off of a team. They don't care about the welfare of the fans traveling to games, or if fans even are inside the stadium, even though we all know, as football fans, we've been supporting the teams for all our lives. We know that these are the moments where, without fans, you've got no game. Look at the COVID seasons, of the Premier League. Look how drab, how boring, how uninteresting it was, to watch the football at that time. No fans in the stadiums, filtered in sound. It just didn't feel, like the game that we love, and we've grown to watch over the years. And that's, again, part and parcel with the fans having to travel to games as well. People just not thinking about the fans. And the fans are the lifeblood of the game. Without them, you've got no game, you've got no football. Players don't get paid massive wages without us fans, attending the games, because nobody's going to want to pay somebody loads and loads of money if nobody's attending to watch. It's just like going to have a kick around in the park then. So definitely something needs to be done about that. I've been saying that for a while, and a lot of people have been saying that for a while now, that the fans need to be at the forefront of the mind when picking the time schedules for games. Wolves fans felt that in their game coming up. There was a very limited amount of Wolves fans that came up to St James's Park in the recent game, and you could sort of sense it, you could sort of feel it a little bit in the ground, because you didn't quite get that, not like you really get it much, to be honest, but didn't really get that like interaction from the Wolves fans back to the Newcastle fans, and it does kind of hamper the atmosphere of the game a little bit.
Yeah,
but definitely forefront of the mind for going forward should be the fans.
Yeah, completely agree with you there, Carl. Completely agree. And I think that, you know, the Premier League, this should be a 3 o'clock kickoff. I'm hoping that once they scrap the 3 o'clock blackout, then hopefully they will find it within themselves to have this game at a 3 o'clock kickoff, or, you know, at the very least 2 p.m. on a Sunday. But then again, train travel's a nightmare on a Sunday, so
Yeah,
you can't really win, can you? You can't really win.
not really.
But let's talk about the recent form as well, because when, you know, I've spoken and I'd speak to lots of Newcastle fans, and there's been quite a contrasting views of some people thinking, well, Eddie's it, Eddie's kind of gone off the rails a little bit at one point, and of course, the run wasn't particularly good at that time, but the run since the start of December, since the defeat by Brentford away from home, which, let's be honest, Brentford's a nightmare of a place to go to,
Yeah,
has been nothing short of spectacular. You've conceded 1 goal in that period. So 1 goal in 6 games. Um, I'm guessing that Eddie's got everybody back on board now, has he?
at the moment, like you say, you know, the games running up to that Brentford game, it just didn't look like the Newcastle that would, you know, come to know under Eddie Howe. The style of play seemed to be a little bit off. You could see at moments we were doing it, and sometimes we weren't. So it was just off and on throughout, really. But that Brentford game, like you say, you know, has been the turning point forward, to be honest. You know, losing like we did to Brentford at their ground. Like you say, it's always a very tough game to play Brentford because of the way they play. The style of Thomas Frank is always a tough one to come up against. And we always seem to find that out, you know, against them as well. We have had good moments against them, but we do have bad moments, like quite a lot of teams when they have to play Brentford. But that was definitely the turning point. Eddie said it many times himself. The players have said it, you know, themselves as well. This is the moment where, you know, the Newcastle players realised we need to be taking our finger out our ass, you know, and getting something going on, you know, with the club, and get this club going where we need to be going, because we're not doing the right style, we're not doing the right play, you know, we're not giving the fans what was said we would give the fans, you know. We're being sold a false dream in their eyes with the way the performances were going on. So it was nice to see, you know, that we finally turned that around. And since then, we're starting to see, you know, this Newcastle United that is probably, in my opinion, even better than the Newcastle United that we were seeing previously under Eddie Howe. You know, we're playing some absolutely amazing football. We've went back to the basics, as Eddie Howe said himself on many times in press conferences of late. You know, we've went back to them basic strategies of, you know, getting the ball in as many areas as possible, getting that ball into Isak, and it's working. A simple switch in the midfield as well is one of the vital reasons to why we're doing so well. With Sandro Tonali now dropping into the number 6 role, Bruno going into the number 8 role, which is something, you know, many Newcastle fans, including myself, was saying, you know, we need Sandro Tonali to go into that central defensive role, and then, you know, Bruno to go higher up, because he works better when he's higher up the field, and it's proven with, you know, the stats that he's been getting of late, where he's been doing lots of duels, he's been getting in there, he's been nabbing the ball off people with interceptions a lot. He's been getting through threaded passes a lot as well. He's getting himself on the score sheet. He's getting assists. So it's all working out, having the team the way it is and the team that is playing at the moment. Sandro looking absolutely fantastic. It's worth missing them games last season, for him to be playing the way he is now. I just can't help but think what he would have done last season if we had have been playing him in this way, if he was able to play, because, who knows, we might have been in the Champions League final with the way the group worked out. Two of the teams out of our group ended up being in the semis and one of them ended up being in the final. So it could have easily been, Newcastle in the final of the Champions League, just imagine, that have been the case. It would have been amazing. But looking at the way we're going, we're not only doing it in the Premier League, we're doing it in the League Cup. We've got the chance of going to another final again under Eddie Howe. Hopefully this time, if we do make it, it's better than the last time under when we went to Man United against Man United. We're doing well in the FA Cup as well. It's just all really, really ticking since that game against Brentford, like you say. And for me, the main vital areas is that midfield, the way the switch has come with Bruno going into the number 8 and Sandro dropping into the number 6. But as well, the goals, Isak banging in goals soon to have a chance to beat Jamie Vardy's record if he keeps going. And Anthony Gordon as well doing well. Murphy picking up as well this season and doing absolutely amazing. Sort of like Miggy's purple patch season Murphy's having. And to talk about Miggy as well, whilst we're on the subject of Miggy, he could be going back to Atlanta United, but there is talk that, he could be available for this game before he goes back to Atlanta United. So plenty of good stuff happening at Newcastle United right now. Really is.
Well, I did have a bit of and I do this every single year, Carl. Me and Harry Redknapp have this bet. And my bet this year was that I think that Newcastle will finish above Chelsea, which, of course, thanks to the draw that we managed to get up at Chelsea, which we should have won. To be honest, we was kind of robbed in the last minute. Free kick coming from Reece James, and there seemed to be some obstruction as well in our wall, but hey, the referee counted it. Of course, you have overtaken them. The Champions League really does look like it is the mission for Eddie Howe, but not only that is this cup run in the Carabao Cup. Now, I'm going to ask you a very, very difficult question here, and it's been playing on my mind because as an AFC Bournemouth fan, I would absolutely love to see some major silverware in the cabinets at Dean Court, because we've never really had that opportunity. Yeah, we've got the championship trophy and we're so proud of that. It's there to that very day, that one in 2015. It is there, and that's probably the proudest moment so far. However, what would you rather, if you could only have one, win the Carabao Cup or qualify for the Champions League via the league? What would you pick?
That's a tough question. That is a tough question. If it was between Champions League and the League Cup, I'd say the League Cup, to be honest, because we need to get that off our back. That's the monkey on our back at the moment. In my eyes, we'll get that first cup and then, the floodgates open forward and we'll go on from there. We'll just have to look at Man City, as a prime example of that. When they got their takeover, they ended up going on to win, I think it was the League Cup as well. They ended up going on to win that, and that started their, windfall of absolute amazing run of trophies and, you know, going on to win the Premier League in 2012 the way they did as well, with that Sergio Aguero moment, which everybody remembers now, you know. So for me, it would be the League Cup, but there's nothing to say, you know, that we can't get both League Cup and Champions League. But if it had to be one, then it would be the League Cup, because, you know, we have then a trophy to look at, and just something that Eddie Howe has been dying to get for Newcastle United since coming in. You know, he wants to be that manager that gets the first trophy for Newcastle since we won, you know, the FA Cup in 1955 and the Intercities Fairs Cup in 1969. So it would be amazing for, you know, Eddie Howe to be that guy, and an English guy doing it as well. You know, it's not something that we see a lot these days. It's usually always foreign managers that come in and win these trophies, or win the Premier League trophy, you know. So to see an English manager doing it would be absolutely amazing. So definitely for me, you know, the League Cup would be at the forefront of Eddie's mind. But then, you know, once we win that League Cup, he'd be focusing on, you know, getting Europe and going forward. As you know yourself, you know, Eddie being a manager at Bournemouth for so long, and what he did there as well, you know, you guys know him just as much as us Newcastle fans know him. You know, he's just a fantastic manager. But yeah, that would definitely be for me League Cup name.
To be honest, the man deserves a statue here. And I really hope once we get this new stadium built, you know, he gets that very statue, because without him, without Eddie Howe, Carl, we wouldn't be playing you. We would probably be playing Morecambe, or we could be playing Barrow, or AFC Wimbledon, or you name it, Harrogate Town. That's probably where we would have been, if not even lower. So yeah, the man is an absolute legend, and there's no reason why you can't do both, because I think personally you're better than Chelsea, you know, in all aspects. I think you know, you have got that team unity. I think, you know, the manager really knows what is needed to get the best out of the players, which he has done time and time again. But who knows? Even a treble might be on the cards. She might go for the FA Cup as well. You know?
Mate, it is there.
What do you reckon? A Bournemouth Newcastle final? I tell you what, that would be brilliant in the FA Cup, wouldn't it? But we've got to get we got to get through Everton first, so they'll probably bore us to absolute tears, as Everton do. A club you're probably not too fond of, really, are you?
No. Not very fond of them at all. Not after that incident with the guy tying himself to the post, definitely not.
No, fair enough, fair enough. Of course, Arsenal is the next game in the League Cup. And, you know, of course, we'll come back onto the Premier League in a moment, but there is talk about Alexander Isak. Now, I think he is and without a shadow of a doubt, at this moment in time, he's the best striker in the Premier League. You know, a lot of people are saying with regards to Mo Salah, you know, I think for player of the season, you could look at Cole Palmer. You know, I did say that in our Chelsea preview. I think, you know, he's been probably the player of the season up until this point, but you can't overlook Isak as well and what he's done. But there is talk that Arsenal are going to come creeping in. Can you keep hold of him? Can the Saudi owners keep hold of him? Because PSR, you know, hopefully, fingers crossed, that's all resolved. You know, there's no concerns over that. But it does feel like there is still that stigma. There's still that threat that, you know, clubs like Newcastle and like ourselves are always going to be looked at, whereas the likes of Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United even, you know, can get away with what the hell they want to.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think they'll be able to do it, to be honest, mate. I've said this many, many times now since Arsenal's been thrown around. I mean, you see them, you know, their fans on social media, you know, just coming up going, oh, we need to get this guy. They're club legends coming up going, we need to get this guy. Not only Arsenal, but other clubs as well, just throwing their names in the hat. And I mean, unless you have 150 million, 200 million, 250 million, you name the price, Alexander's price just keeps going up and up and up. Every time he scores more goals, that price is just going to keep rising because there's nobody at the moment on the level of Alexander Isak. I mean, in the Premier League, nobody can come close to him in the world right now. I'd probably say, that's a massive statement, I know.
Yeah.
But in the world right now, looking at what Alexander Isak's doing, he's doing it in the Premier League, which we all know is the toughest league in the world. And if you can do it in the Premier League, then you'll be able to do it in the Spanish League, the German League, Italian League, and so on. So no way is he going to Arsenal. Arsenal can't afford him. Liverpool can't afford him. All these, as I like to call them, the cartel clubs, are not going to be able to get Alexander Isak because we're not going to sell him. The Saudis don't need to. We don't need that money because there's plenty of money there. And there's plenty of other players that will go from Newcastle United before Alexander Isak is even thought of being moved on. The same with Bruno, same with Sandro Tonali as well. We're not going to be selling with big players to these teams because I don't know if you watched True Geordie, but he said it perfectly fine, a while back. He says, what is the point in these teams, like West Ham's, yourselves, us, selling our players to teams like Man City, Arsenal, Tottenham, Man U, Liverpool, if we're trying to compete with these teams to get European football, you're not going to be able to compete with them if you're selling your best players to them. You just have to look at the German league for that. All of the teams in the German league complain that Bayern Munich wins the title pretty much every single season. They've got themselves to blame. They're selling their best players to Bayern Munich. So what do you think's literally going to happen? At the end of the day, if you're selling your best players to, which is pretty much classed as the best team in their league, then that's obviously going to happen. You're never going to get ahead. You're never going to be able to keep up with them if you're selling your best talent constantly. And we've seen it with, Southampton, selling all of their players that they've sold over the years. They've sold Van Dijk to Liverpool. They sold Sadio Mane to Liverpool. They sold, Adam Lallana to Liverpool. They sold all these players that, obviously they had no choice because they needed the money. But if they could have kept them talents at their club, then, they would have been in a better place for it. They would have been able to challenge. They would have made more money probably than what they did off selling the players, So no way how is Newcastle selling any of our best players to them teams. Definitely not.
To be honest, when it makes me chuckle actually thinking about, the players that Southampton have sold. Of course, our local rivals just down the M27. They're on 6 points at the moment. I think they're probably going to beat Derby's record. But they've sold players that probably would attribute to what you would say is a side that could probably win the title, to be fair, if they kept hold of them all.
Exactly.
Talking about a player that probably will be leaving Newcastle sometime in the not so distant future, and a legend again at this football club, Callum Wilson. Do you think his time is up at Newcastle? And where do you think it would be wise? And I'll tell you what, I'll throw it to you again. Considering Bournemouth's injury crisis at the moment, would it be wise for Simon Francis, of course, our director of football, to give him a call and say, could Callum come back on a short-term loan? And do you think Eddie would be like, yeah, fair enough?
To be honest, mate, I think Callum Wilson's time is up at Newcastle United. I think it has been for a little while now. He's very, very injury prone. The way, 1 minute he's fit, then, he goes into a match, immediately he's back injured. He's on the injury table again. So I think for us as Newcastle fans, his time is definitely up here. Don't get us wrong, he's been a fantastic servant since coming in from you guys. You know, he's done some really great stuff for it. But I think with Alexander Isak, the way he's going at the moment, you know, I don't see Callum Wilson getting straight into the team. I don't see him getting back in there. As a backup, I don't really see him getting in either, to be honest, because we've got William Asula coming into the team now. You know, and the way he played in the game against Bromley in the FA Cup, you know, I can see Eddie wanting to get that lad more chances forward, you know, so that puts probably Callum Wilson to third choice striker at the club, and I can't see him wanting to be that, you know, so I could see if, you know, Bournemouth put in an interest for him, I could see, you know, well, maybe he's looking at that and saying, yeah, you know, let's give that a look at properly and send maybe Callum Wilson on loan to you guys with maybe an option to buy, or, you know, just maybe send him on loan to you guys till, you know, his contract runs out, because I don't think he's got that long of a contract left, to be honest. Last time I checked, I don't think it was very long left on his contract. So, you know, maybe he could just go on loan to you guys till his contract runs out. You sign him on a free, something like that. And I'm sure he wouldn't, you know, have any problems with that move, to be honest, because it's back to an old kicking ground where, you know, he's loved. Eddie Howe as well, I'm sure I wouldn't mind doing it neither, because, you know, it's helping out you guys and giving you somebody who to use, you know, would be a fantastic finisher of the ball. And that's no disrespect by the way with that comment, you know, but for you guys, somebody like Callum Wilson, you know, if he can get fit enough, he can score them goals. You know, before he got injured, he scored, I think it was 18 goals or something like that. It was in the season before he got injured, which was one of his best tallies he'd got at Newcastle. And you guys, that would be a massive one for you. You know, it would really, really help you out and would really get you, you know, going up that table. So, yeah, I could see them definitely looking at that, mate, if that was an option that came up. Definitely.
To be honest, it would be a gamble from our perspective, considering where we are in the table. But he does know the club. The coaching staff know him. And if he can get enough, you know, like you say, fit enough, I would have him back tomorrow. Just probably till the end of the season, see how he gets on. But like I say, we've already got masses of injuries, you know. Replacing those injuries with somebody who could be seen as another sick note, but I'd give it a go. I'd give it a go rather than spending out ridiculous amounts. And of course, Andoni Iraola's style is to bring in these young players, you know, these young prospects. We've just signed a youngster from Chelsea, very, very highly rated, a left back, of course, as well. From Argentina in Lanús, 6.6 million. So, you know, we know what he's probably aiming for the future, but I think, you know, as a short-term fix, Callum might just be the option, just the key to actually help us into Europe ourselves. But on that note, of course, like I say, we have got masses of injuries. And taking your mind back to last season when you visited Dean Court, it was role reversal at that point. Newcastle had tons of injuries. It's probably the best time to play us, isn't it? How can you see it going, Carl?
To be honest, mate, like you just touched on there, you know, last season we were riddled with injuries. That really hampered our season, and we've got injuries this season as well, but just not to that extent. Definitely, you know, not like you guys are having at the moment. You've got quite a few players, key players as well, that are out injured at the moment. So yeah, it is a worry for you guys, especially, you know, when you see, you know, what's going on at us at the moment, how we're, you know, going into games as well. But that's not to say, that you're going to come up here. It's going to be an absolute mauling, because we've seen, teams come up here and do pretty decent and not get mauled. I mean, Wolves, people thought that was going to be a pretty heavy scoreline, and it turned out not to be that heavy of a scoreline, only 3-0, which when you consider, a lot of people would say that's a big scoreline, but I'd say something more along the lines of a 4, 5, 6, so on is a massive, massive scoreline. I had to go with a score prediction on it, for this one. I think if you want a score prediction now,
go for it. Yeah, go for
it. If I had to go for a score prediction now, I would probably say a very tightly close game, especially with Eddie Howe's record against Bournemouth as well. He's yet to win as Newcastle manager against Bournemouth, and out of 13 games between Newcastle and Bournemouth, he's won 2 out of the 13. So I would go for a very closely tight game, edging in our favour. And I would say, Newcastle come away 2-1 winners against you. I don't think that would be too bad of a scoreline. I think it is, at least, serviceable for you coming away from that, because you're not conceding too many goals.
Yeah.
You at least score a goal as well, which is something that, teams like Arsenal, Man U and that haven't been able to do against Newcastle, along with a number of other teams as well. So to be coming away with that scoreline, I think some of you would be maybe happy with that kind of scoreline. Just an assumption there. I don't know, but I think it will be a tightly close game, mate, definitely.
To be honest, I would be delighted if we come back with a point from St James's Park, and the main reason being is because of the injuries. We're very depleted. Of course, we've had the Chelsea game midweek as well, which hasn't helped. There is a dire need to get bodies possibly through the door or off the injury table, probably off the injury table before through the door. But yeah, there's a desired need. I would be happy with a 1-1 draw, but
yeah,
again, if we are beaten up at Newcastle, it wouldn't be the end of the world for me, because as long as we're not battered, it would be something that, okay, we're in a bit of a crisis here. We're not, completely out of, we can still get possible European qualification. I can't believe we're even talking about it, but, it's crazy, this football club talking about European qualification. But we're in that race now. We're not going to get relegated. We might as well go for it. And, there is going to be bumps in the road, and I think this potentially could be one of those. But on the spin side, it is against Eddie. Eddie hasn't got a very good record against Bournemouth. And final question, I do want to, sorry to throw in another question to you, Carl, but I saw something the other day that Eddie Howe is going easy on AFC Bournemouth. Is that true, or is that absolute bollocks?
I think that is absolute bollocks, mate. I really do. I don't think Eddie's that kind of manager to do that, to be honest. He takes his football very seriously, as you know.
Exactly. I personally, when I saw that, I had to laugh, and I was just like, yeah, Eddie's main priority is getting Newcastle into those Champions League places, not trying to help us out. At the end of the day, he's probably thinking, well, I'd like to see him do well, but at the end of the day, his priority number one is making sure A, he keeps his job, and B, he's successful for Newcastle. So yeah, that's the main thing for him.
Exactly.
Yeah. Carl, it's been an absolute pleasure. Do tell everybody where they can find 100% Mags.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, coming on. I've loved having a chat with you today. And everybody, you can find 100% Mags at 100 PCT Mags on Twitter I'm also on Facebook as well. I've got a Facebook page over on there, and also TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff. And of course, main area is YouTube, where I do my content, talking about all things Newcastle United, transfers, match previews, reactions, and all the latest news and stuff like that. So that's everywhere where you can find us. And like I say, pleasure coming on the channel, mate, and talking to you today. And hopefully a really good game for to all enjoy. And hopefully with Newcastle coming away with a win as well would be nice.
Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, that last bit, hopefully we can get a point up at St James's Park. But I think with our injuries, it's going to be this is the game that I'm going, I fancy us beating Forest at home. I actually fancy us doing something against Liverpool as well, which might sound weird. But yeah, this is the game that I'm kind of dreading. But all the very, very best for the rest of the season. Go get the European Champions League qualification, of course, after this game. Also, go win that Carabao Cup. Effectively do the double. Okay, the qualification for the Champions League isn't a trophy, but let's count it as that. But don't do the treble. But we'll see you at Wembley in May for the FA Cup final, and we'll have that one.
Who knows, mate?
Yeah,
who knows? We'll see.
We just got to get past Everton first, and we'll be on our way. Albeit,
hey, there's every chance, mate. There's every chance.
Oh yeah, Everton. Well, I'll probably be falling asleep after about 10 minutes of that. Oh no, Sean Dyche has gone. So yeah,
it's
it might be a little bit
Moyes now.
Yeah. Well, Carl, pleasure as always. Thank you so much. No doubt we'll catch up next season and possibly after the game as well.
No worries, mate.
Thanks so much, mate.
Thanks, though.
And thank you everybody for joining us. Hit the like, subscribe and the bell button below. It helps this channel to grow. Now do check out all of our other interviews as well. We've had Richie Neville from 5 on. We've had Damon Minchella from Ocean Colour Scene. He is an Everton fan, Newcastle fan, sorry. We've had Omid Jalili, the comedian, on. He is a Chelsea fan, but also he does support Ipswich Town as well. So go watch that. We've had Peter Hooton from The Farm, Richard Archer from Hard-Fi, Adam Devlin from the Blue Tones, Gaz Whelan from the Happy Mondays. Who have I forgot? Adrian Charles, of course, from ITV and BBC Sports as well. Tiff Nadell, former Top Gear presenter. He even took me round the track at Thruxton in his M3. And I tell you what, anybody watching who wants a thrill, who loves their cars, go bloody do that. It's absolutely amazing. And Tiff, absolute legend, lovely man. Go do it. There's loads more as well on this channel. Just check the interview tab. You'll find out more about AFC Bournemouth. You'll find more about celebrities, comedians, presenters, everybody. So yeah, do go check that out. Thank you again for joining us. We shall see you in the next show. Thank you. Up the cherries, up the Toon, and of course, the best of luck to Eddie Howe after this game, though. Sorry, Eddie. Has to be said. Thanks for joining us.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.